Welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. And apparently, last week I had a bit of a moment on social media, but not a fun, oh my God, he's so funny viral moment that I would have hoped for. This time it was for mispronouncing someone's name and something, quite frankly, that I should have done better. And when I tell you that the comment section lit up like a Christmas tree, people had opinions and rightfully so. I am in agreement with everything that everyone had to say. It just took me a hot second to not feel so frustrated. So, some people said, hey, just learn how to say people's names correctly. And others said that I was racist, that podcast equipment should be less expensive. And I mean, that's a funny little quip, so I'll give them that. Some left very long comments stating that I was mispronouncing his name intentionally and that having a podcast doesn't make me exempt from being a part of a long history of racism in the country. And you're not wrong. You are correct. Obviously, that stuff was not super fun to read. And my instinct was to clap back. And I clapped back to one person, truthfully, because they thought that I was saying his name incorrectly. And then I used my Canadian accent as an excuse, stating that I say pasta and bagel a certain way. And I made a reel that was, for me, a bit sarcastic and supposed to be funny. And obviously, that did not land. I was pissed, but I was attempting to make a little bit of light out of it. I put a lot of time, hours, hours upon hours, writing, recording, editing, marketing this podcast, thinking I'm saying positive things about the shift in politics and that I was being supportive of Mamdani, only to be met with nothing but negative comments. That's very challenging. But what is more challenging is being a person of color and having your name mispronounced over and over and over again, and intentionally by people who oppose you. So I get it. I get it now. It's not the reason I wanted this reel to be one of my most popular reels because I was mispronouncing his name. That's not at all what I want Hot Air to be known for. So my response video that I made, which was reactionary, got even more of a reaction. One comment said that if you can pronounce Daenerys Targaryen, which I can pronounce that, just said it, but I also don't watch Game of Thrones, but you can accept the learning moment and pronounce Mamdani correctly from here on out. It's happened to many of us, and how we respond to the correction matters. Also, pasta is an inanimate object. And that was from someone with a pretty substantial following. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, fuck. Like, they're really going to come for me. 30 some odd comments later, which for some is not a lot, but for me it is. I was like, damn, this was not the reaction I expected, nor should I have reacted the way that I did. Now, even at this time, I was saying his name over and over, and I was watching videos how to pronounce his name. I was watching videos of him pronounce his name correctly, something that I should have done before I hit record on last week's episode of Hot Air. I put a lot of time into the other process of it, just not learning how to pronounce his name correctly. And honestly, it sounded right to me when I was saying it, right? So I didn't really think much of it, which is also the problem. I kind of was like, well, I'm gay and I'm an ally and I'm talking about positive things, so I don't think anyone is going to come for me. And there was also the part of accepting the lesson when there were no lessons in the comment section, just people calling me racist and telling me to quit podcasting. Even that influential therapist did not lend a lesson. They were all corrections. And it's nobody's job to teach me. It is my own responsibility to teach myself. If I want to be educated, I should do that myself. I tell people all the time, if you want to be an ally to the LGBTQ plus community, you need to do your own work and your own research. And in this moment, I was really eating my own words. And this isn't a sob story about me, but I genuinely felt really bad. I barely slept last night. I kept waking up being like, oh, fuck, I'm done. But instead of disappearing into the shadows with a fucking matcha latte and a therapist, which I will do tomorrow, I thought, let's make this a little learning moment, right? For me, and maybe for some people listening, for people that came for me, and for the people that might make a similar mistake. So today, we're going to talk about microaggressions and what they are, why they hit so hard, and how both sides, the ones who mess up and the ones who call it out, can hopefully hear each other a little bit better. So all in all, I'm taking this experience as an opportunity to learn, to offer the lessons that I spent the weekend researching for others to hopefully learn from as well, which I don't think a lot of people cop up to their mistakes and do things like this. So I'm hoping to just shift this a little bit. But let's get uncomfortable because I'm uncomfy as fuck, let's be real. And I'm sure somewhere in there, some things are going to be misinterpreted by me and by others, some things that I'm saying. And I'm also open to learning more about those things that I may say in this episode. My goal is not to put my foot in my mouth, but it may happen again. And I hope to take that as a learning experience. Okay, that was a long intro. Long intro. Let's take a breath and let's hit it. Let's start with what even a microaggression is, because I thought I had an understanding of it and I didn't. So for anyone who hasn't taken a diversity training in the last decade, a microaggression is a small, often unintentional behavior or comment that communicates bias towards a marginalized group. I always thought that microaggressions were intentional. So for everyone that I clap back at saying it wasn't a microaggression, what I said, it was. They're not always loud or hateful, or even all that obvious. They're those little digs that add up like mosquito bites. One doesn't ruin your day, but 50 of them, you're scratching until next Tuesday. And here are some examples to help us clarify some of this. Saying to a Black colleague, "You're so articulate." It sounds like a compliment, right? But it implies surprise, as if you did not expect them to be so well spoken. Or asking an Asian American, "Where are you really from?" which translates to, "You don't actually belong here." Telling a woman in a meeting, "You're being emotional," when she's really just being assertive. We've seen that time and time again. Or saying to a gay guy, "You don't seem gay," which, thanks, I guess, but what does that really mean? And then there's the one that I stumbled into, mispronouncing someone's name. Now, let's be real. Everyone mispronounces things sometimes. But when it's someone's name, and especially when it's a name from a non-white culture, it's going to hit different because names are identity. And historically, in the US, mispronouncing people's names, especially names from immigrant communities, has been a subtle way of saying, "You don't fit." And that is not cool. And let's talk about the power of a name. Think about how often this has happened in the public eye, and especially so in recent years. Remember how people, including politicians, deliberately mispronounced Kamala Harris's name during the election. They didn't say, "oops," they leaned right into it. They made jokes about it. They said things like, "whatever, I can't say it." That wasn't a slip up. That was a statement, a way to make her sound foreign or other or not one of us. It was very clearly intentional. So when people hear a name mispronounced, even if you didn't mean it like that and it was not intentional, they're hearing echoes of all those moments where someone else did mean it like that. That's why people were so triggered by my video. It wasn't just my mistake. It was the weight of every time that someone's name had been disrespected before me for decades and centuries. Which leads us into why people reacted so strongly. I think that deserves a bit of a deeper look. Let's unpack it. When my episode of Hot Air dropped, most of the feedback was about the content until I said Zohran Mamdani incorrectly. That's when the tone shifted. To me, it was just a mispronunciation. To listeners, it sounded careless, like I did not take the time to learn the name of a man I was talking about on a public platform. And they are not wrong. I thought I was saying it correctly, but as I said, later I went and watched videos specifically explaining how to pronounce his name correctly. And I did it over and over and over. Should have done that before the episode. And then, because I'm human and I'm a bit of a defensive person, I made a follow-up video saying something like, "Everyone chill out. It was a mistake. Grammar police, etc., etc., etc." And I understand also that it's not grammar police. That is just the word that came to my head. But that response did not help. In fact, it made things worse because telling people to chill out is basically the universal way to guarantee that they won't. Nobody wants to be told calm down when they are not calm. Hello, we all know this. And here's what I missed in that moment. When people are hurt, minimizing their reaction doesn't just make it go away, it amplifies it. So it does the opposite. It says, your feelings are too much, which, irony alert, is kind of its own microaggression. So the second wave of comments wasn't just about the name, it was about my response. People were not only mad that I mispronounced it, they were mad that I didn't seem to get why it mattered. And in that moment, because I was clouded in frustration and thinking about all the positive things I said in the episode, I was like, does it completely negate the fact that I was supporting him, that I was in line with him, that I wanted Mamdani to be the mayor of New York, and I was excited for him to take over and run the city? But it does cloud it. When you make a microaggression like that, it completely takes away from your message being positive and supportive. And then backing it up with like frustration and anger doesn't help the issue. And that is kind of where that classic phrase comes in: intent versus impact. My intent was innocent. I was not mocking or dismissing anyone, but the impact was still real, because intent doesn't live in your heart. It lives in how other people experience your words. Like when you bump into someone and you spill their coffee, you don't yell, "Oh, I didn't mean it," and then you run away. You grab napkins, you apologize, and you offer to buy them another cup of coffee. Or at least that's what a decent human being would do. So why do we struggle to do the same when it comes to social mistakes like this? In retrospect, my response should have been, you're right, I did pronounce it wrong. It was not intentional, and I will do my best in the future, and I will clarify that on the next episode. Like, that would have been so much easier, and none of this would be happening. But it's the ego. And let's face it, I'm a podcaster, so I have one. We want to be the good person. We don't want to believe that we can hurt somebody, especially if it wasn't on purpose. But sometimes being the good person means being the accountable person, and that is a challenge for many, including myself sometimes. And hot air is about honesty. And so I'm going to be honest here for a second, although my tone and my thought has shifted. But my first reaction to this backlash and the comment section was that it was overblown, that people are just looking for something to be mad about, because no one ever comments supportive things on my Instagram and TikTok. It's very rare that someone's like, yes, go girl, get it. But you'll come for me to just like hammer me down and point something out. That was my initial reaction. That's not how I feel now. But that is simply defensiveness talking. That's the part of me that wants to be right instead of be real. But if I had taken a beat, I might have remembered, not everyone is reacting to just me. It's not all about me. They're reacting to a extremely long pattern of their names being ignored, their cultures being misrepresented, their identities reduced to punchlines. So to them, my video was not one mistake. It was many more. And it was one more mistake in a long list of experiences that they have that I likely will never be able to relate to. And when you see it that way, their frustration makes a lot of sense. So how do we listen better? Let's say you mess up and someone calls you out. What do you actually do? Well, don't do what I did. Don't react. Let's take a pause before reacting, which lately I've actually been really good at. It's something I've been working a lot at in therapy. I take sometimes 2 weeks to formulate a text, but I was heated in the moment. Again, I thought I was creating positive content and I was excited about it. And I've even reached out to Mamdani and asked him to be on the podcast prior to that episode. And so, unfortunately, my ego got the best of me. But you don't have to reply immediately. Sit with the discomfort, sit with the irritation, and just sit with it, right? It's never good to respond when you're pissed. And then acknowledge that feedback. Even if you don't fully understand it yet, just say, I hear you. Or don't even respond at all. Ask questions in order to learn, not defend. Like, can you help me understand how that came across? Instead of, that's not what I meant, which is the opposite of what I did. And then the hard part for everyone is apologizing. Apologize for the impact, not the intent. Saying I didn't mean to is only going to center you. But saying I understand that hurt you and I will do better is going to center them. So it's all about how you're using your words. And lastly, this is what I fucking say all the time, and I don't know why I didn't do it. Do the homework. Google is free. If you want to know how to bake a cake, you Google it. So, pronunciation guides are also free and they're all over Google, which I found very easily after. Take your time, do your research, put your thinking cap on, people. But I do still think there's a flip side of that because I try to educate friends and family all the time. So, how can we teach better? How can we be better teachers? Let's flip it a little bit because accountability isn't necessarily a one-way street. If you're someone who's educating others about bias or calling people out online, you have incredible power. Seriously, you do, because you affected me and made me think and made me adjust my thought process. But how you use that power is going to matter because yelling like you're canceled or throw out your microphone or unsubscribed, it might feel really good in the moment. We all know people that get heated in the comment section, but it's rarely going to change hearts because for a while I was more pissed off than anything. So maybe here's how I think we can call people out instead of just calling them out. You can try leading with curiosity and not contempt and saying like, "Hey, I noticed you said this way. Can I tell you why it bothered me?" That's going to land way better than "you're absolute trash." And giving people the room to grow, which I'm hoping people are going to give me the room to grow. No one learns while they're being shamed. And for a few days, I didn't learn. And then I took a hot pause for a moment. And I feel like in my research over the weekend, I've learned a lot. And assume imperfection, not malice. Not everyone's ignorance is intentional. Sometimes it's just ignorance. And I don't like to be ignorant, but I can tell you it wasn't intentional. And most of the comments said that it was intentional. And also, remember what your goal is. Is it to be right or is it to be heard? Because again, no one's going to hear you when you're screaming. My response video is a prime example of that. I was upset. I was not having it. I was being sarcastic. Nobody heard my message that I thought was coming out of my mouth. It was processing in my brain. All they heard was me being an asshole. But being right and being heard are not the same thing. And there's a lot of times in life that I try to educate, again, my friends and family about LGBTQ plus issues, and I get heated when people don't get it. But those key little notes that I just mentioned, I'm going to try to adopt those and apply them to conversations that I have specific to LGBTQ plus issues when I'm trying to educate and trying to help people see what it is I'm trying to do here. So the same can be said for anyone who is advocating for any kind of group. Aggression is going to get us nowhere. So after my few days of feeling frustrated, feeling guilty, feeling like shit, I had a little mirror moment, right? So I messed up. And then I messed up again, trying to defend my first mess up, like tale as old as time. But it's hard to say that I'm glad it happened because I kind of wish it didn't, but it also forced me to learn something and it forced me to look in the mirror and it forced me to walk the walk, not just talk the talk, right? I realized how quick I am to expect grace from others, but how slow I can be to earn it. And I learned that growth, it doesn't happen in comfort, right? It happens in cringe. So that's how we learn. We have to get uncomfortable. I've said it time and time again. It's just been a hot minute since I've experienced it. So the reality is we all have blind spots. We're all capable of causing harm, even unintentionally, but being willing to face that's where the real work is going to start. And now, because this is an LGBTQ plus podcast, let's get a little bit gay specific for a hot second. And some of this is going to feel like I just pressed the rewind button and I'm replaying the entire episode, but it's important to understand that microaggressions happen everywhere. So we're going to zoom in. Usually I zoom out, but we're going to zoom in on how they show up specifically in the queer community, because believe me, we've all heard them or seen them or said them or sat there thinking, did that person just say that out loud? And again, maybe people didn't know that they were exhibiting these behaviors. And here's the thing. Microaggressions towards the LGBTQ plus community are sneaky, just like they are towards people of color. They're not always something like somebody yelling slurs, though obviously that happens and that's not a microaggression. They're the quieter things, the little jokes, the assumptions, the questions that seem innocent until you realize that there's a stereotype hiding inside. And I am not brushing over my mishap with Mamdani. I think that for me to fully understand microaggressions, I deciding to explore it from the LGBTQ plus point of view, which is a point of view obviously that I can relate to. Therefore, I think that this will help me and others see if I use examples that I have experienced. So these microaggressions in the queer community, like they show up again, like a coworker saying, "Oh my God, I would have never guessed that you were gay," or the friend who tells a lesbian couple, "You two just need the right guy." Like, no, they're lesbians. Or a person at a party who decides to play 20 questions about your body parts or who's the man and who's the woman in a relationship. All things that I have heard and I have experienced before. It's exhausting. It's like living inside a game show where the prize is emotional labor. And just because somebody says something to me that is a microaggression, like saying, "Who's the man and the woman in your relationship?" I'm going to get pissed, but it's going to be upset based on years and years and years of that experience. Just like me mispronouncing anybody's name, they're going to be upset with me, but it's not just me. It's the years of them having to deal with that. And I think it's important to explore more examples of this, everyday examples, because these specifics happen all of the time and sometimes they're overlooked. So it could be someone saying like, "Oh, you're gay? You must love fashion. Come shopping with me." Like we've heard that time and time again. And I love fashion, but not every gay does. It's the assumption that every gay man came out of the womb quoting Project Runway. Like, no, spoiler. Some of us dress like a Pinterest board. Others dress like they lost a bet at H&M. Like it's not that deep. It's a stereotype. Or people saying to like a trans woman, "You don't look trans." That one is meant as a compliment, but it's actually saying you've successfully passed my arbitrary standard of what gender should look like. It's not great. It's not a good thing to say. Or when did you decide that you were gay? Somewhere between I love Britney Spears and I hate gym class. I guess that's when it happened. But also, sexuality is not a decision. It's not a hairstyle you test out for the summertime. Or what about you're too pretty to be a lesbian? Okay, first of all, what does that even mean? And second, beauty does not have a sexuality. Again, ridiculous. There's people that say, "Oh, I love gay people. My cousin is gay." Okay, congratulations, I guess. Would you like a medal? That's like saying, "I'm not racist. I eat tacos." It's ridiculous. Appreciation is not the same thing as understanding. And my last example, when people say, "I just don't get the they, them thing." That translates to, "Your identity confuses me, so I'm not going to try." But here's a secret. You don't have to get it to respect it. And that goes for me. I don't have to fully be able to digest why right now or right away or right in the moment, why it was wrong for me to pronounce Mamdani's name incorrectly. But I have to respect it. These little comments, they might sound harmless, and some of them might sound even funny, but the impact adds up. When someone's identity is constantly questioned, joked about, or made into a curiosity, it chips away at belonging. It tells you that you're tolerated, but not fully accepted, that your existence is interesting, but perhaps not normal. And over time, that does real damage. Studies show that repeated microaggressions can increase anxiety, depression, and feelings of isolation among queer people, and of course, other minority groups. Because it's not just what's being said, it's the message behind it. And that message is that you're different, and I get to define what that means. It's a reminder that acceptance is conditional and that you're always being measured against someone else's comfort level. And this doesn't just happen outside of the LGBTQ plus community, it happens inside as well. And that's where it gets even messier. Microaggressions don't just come from straight people, they happen within our own community. It's the gay guy who tells his friend that "you're too femme, you make us look bad," or someone saying "you're bisexual, pick a side," or mocking a trans person for being too political, or we see it all the time. Mask for mask, no fats, no femmes on Grindr or Tinder. I immediately block those fuckers because I hate that behavior, but we've all seen it before. Sometimes it's subtle exclusion, like leaving out non-binary people when talking about men and women, which I have also done on this podcast. And then when I listen, I go, okay, lock that in your mind for later so that I'm not just saying he or she or men and women, because we know there's a broad spectrum, or assuming that everyone in the room is cisgender. Like that's also not a thing. Even in our own spaces, we can internalize bias and project it onto others. That is the whole thing about microaggressions. They're socialized into everyone. You don't have to be malicious to cause harm. You just have to be unaware and you're going to piss someone off, and rightfully so. Let's revisit the intent versus impact lesson just from a slightly different perspective. The common thread is that most people don't mean to be offensive. They think they're being curious or funny or just making conversation, filling in the gap of the silence a lot of the time. But intent doesn't neutralize the sting. Imagine being reminded over and over again that people see your identity as something to question or analyze instead of something to just exist. So again, when a straight coworker says, "Oh, you're gay? Oh my God, we should go shopping together." They're not trying to insult you. They think that they're connecting. They think they're making a connection and forming a relationship. But what you hear is, "You're not a full person. You're a stereotype that I can accessorize with." And gosh, I've experienced that so much, being the gay best friend, the accessory to a lot of straight white women, which is frankly why I don't spend a lot of time with them anymore, because they probably won't get it. And it's not evil, it's just lazy empathy. It's thinking that you're being inclusive when you're not. So let's revisit how we can do better. What do we do about it? How do we stop handing out microaggressions like it's Halloween candy? Here are a few ideas that don't require a PhD in sociology. Ask, don't assume. Don't guess someone's pronouns. Don't guess their orientation. Don't guess their role in their relationship. Just ask respectfully if you want to know, and you move on. Don't make curiosity someone else's problem. If you're unsure about a term or identity, Google is your friend. No one owes you a TED Talk about their gender over brunch. And respect boundaries. LGBTQ plus people are not here to be your diversity training. Listen more than you speak, which is a challenge for many, sometimes including myself. You can also challenge stereotypes, even the positive ones. Compliments that rely on assumptions are still limiting. "You're so fashionable for a guy" is not a compliment, it's a stereotype. When corrected, say thank you. That's it. Not, "Oh, but I didn't mean it." Just, "Thank you for telling me," which I will be taking that note moving forward. Instead of clapping back, just say thank you or don't say anything at all until you've digested it. And try to include everyone in your language. Instead of "ladies and gentlemen," just try "everyone" or "all," or, be inclusive. Tiny shifts like that make a very big difference. And here is the bigger truth in all of this. Microaggressions might seem like small slips of the tongue, but they have a big consequence. Even though they're called micro, they have a big consequence. They can turn a classroom, a workplace, or even a friendship into a space that feels unsafe or at least not fully welcoming. And for LGBTQ plus people, especially those who also face racism, sexism, or transphobia, those tiny cuts stack up. It's not just about the one comment. It's about living in a world that still needs asterisks next to your existence. But there's also hope. Once you see them, you can't unsee them. You start noticing them in others, in yourself, and that is how change starts. And I can guarantee you, I will never make that same mistake again. I will also never forget making that same mistake, mispronouncing Mamdani's name. Because the goal here is not perfection, it is awareness. It's realizing that every time you choose kindness over assumption, curiosity over judgment, respect over defensiveness, Josh, you're building a world that feels a little safer for everyone. And that has always been my goal. That is kind of the whole point of this, to build a world for everyone and make people feel heard and included and inclusive. And my reaction did not reflect that. And this is where we pause for me to apologize, because I am very sorry at the way that I reacted to some of those comments. I was heated in the moment, defensive, and not at all what my platform and or podcast is even about. So for those that I clap back at, I apologize and I am sorry for that. I'm also sorry for mispronouncing Mamdani's name and not doing the research ahead of time. I did a shitload of research, writing the scripts, recording, filming, editing, but I did not sit down and watch videos about how to accurately pronounce his name. And while I was doing it, I thought I was saying it right. And then I blame my Canadian accent for not saying it right, which a lot of people point out my accent all the time. So I was like, oh, maybe it won't be that big of a deal. But after reflecting and taking the time to work on this next episode of Hot Air about microaggressions, I see it now. I understand it now. I understand why people were so frustrated and hurt and over it, because it's not just me. It's not about me. It's not about my one slip up. It's about years and years and years and decades of people intentionally mispronouncing people's names to make them othered. And to all of the comments that were obviously not very nice, I am also grateful and thankful for those, because it forced me to take a few days to really think about how I got myself into this position, in a position I never wanted to be in. It does not feel good, but discomfort is where we grow. Being uncomfy and cringe is how we learn to approach situations in a different way. And there will be times in the future, I am sure of it, that I will slip up, that I will make mistakes, and I will always revisit those issues and try my best to rectify them, to do better, to treat everyone equally and with respect. Because in the end, Hot Air is about that. It is about inclusion. Everything I share is rooting for the queer community and for people of color and for immigrants. Like, I am so far left that it really shook me up to be called a racist and insinuate that I was doing that intentionally. And yeah, I really don't want to be in that position again. And if that's how bad I felt just one time, I can only imagine how bad people feel, like Mamdani, when people intentionally mispronounce his name probably his entire life. So, like, my feelings are so irrelevant here, because I just should have known better, right? Really should have. And I do also hope that in the future, if I do fuck up like that again, that people will try to offer some insight and reasoning, so that it's not some heated go after each other in the comment section thing, which I obviously took part in as well. But I think I want people to call me out. I tell my therapist all the time, I'm like, come for me, tell me to shut up, ask me questions, make me dig deeper. Like, I want to get into the thick of it. And I want to get into the thick of it with people listening, because I want to be inclusive. But the only way to do that is to have a productive conversation. So I'm still open to that. Perhaps you want to leave more comments and fill me in and let me know, like, maybe I didn't do it justice. Maybe there's more that could be done in this episode. Maybe I'm still not saying things correctly. And I think that I am. Like, in my ear, they sound right, but perhaps they are not. So the comment section is always open. I just won't respond as aggressively as I did last week. So now, finishing this up, if you've ever been on either side of this, the one who said something wrong or the one who got hurt, here's my advice. Start with empathy for both of you. It sounds basic, but it's revolutionary in practice. Start with empathy. Because the truth is, we don't need less accountability. We need more compassion with accountability. If we can kind of call people out with a little bit of grace, and if we can receive that feedback without so much ego, we might actually get somewhere. I think this is why there's so much divisiveness in this country, and why we're all just butting heads, because everyone's so heated and angry. So to everyone who commented, who DM'd me, and even the ones who came for me and came in hot, I hear you and I get it now. And thank you, genuinely thank you for holding me accountable. Even if it was really uncomfortable for me, I appreciate it. And to anyone who's ever made a similar mistake, then this episode is for you to learn. I also hope that you get it now. I really dove deep and explored what microaggressions actually are, because I thought that I knew and I had an understanding of them, and I clearly did not, which is why I got so defensive, because I hadn't done the work. And to anyone whose name has ever been mispronounced and dismissed or joked about, I see you. I am sorry. I am learning. And that's that, I think. That's scary. This is like a very vulnerable episode, and I hope everything I said makes sense, and that people have maybe a better understanding of me and where I was coming from. And we're just going to see what happens. But this was Hot Air, the episode where I learned to say things right and mean it. And it feels weird to finish with If you're not following me on Instagram at _hotairpod, also on TikTok, you can visit my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com, to send me your listener stories. I feel like maybe some listener stories specific to this topic would be really helpful for me and others. And you can also send some suggestions for topics or guests that I should have on in future episodes. So I appreciate you all listening and hopefully giving me the grace to share my perspective and also share the lessons that I took from this interesting week on social media. So again, this is Hot Air. I'm Josh, and I will see you next Tuesday.